Afternoon, everyone. Hope you're all okay. So my name's Roxanne Quay, and I have here also Mabuba Ahmed, and we're going to be the host for today's summer induction regarding psychology. We are the psychology teachers here at New Vic, and we are here to just give you a bit of a taster regarding what to expect over the next year, or next 2 years rather, if you were to choose A-level psychology or applied psychology here at New Vic.
Yeah, before we start, can we just get a check or a show of hands, or someone just pop in the chat whether you can hear us okay?
Nice.
Fantastic, thank you.
Nice, we've got a few people in here, don't we? Nice.
That's great. All right, let's make a start.
So to start off with, we have a few questions, about 6, I believe, around amazing facts about the human brain.
Are they?
So what we would like you to do is place true or false in the chat based on the statement. You have roughly about 5-6 seconds to think about your answer before we tell you whether it is true or not.
Okay, so we'll show you the statement and just pop in the chat whether you think this fact about the human brain is actually a fact or if it is false. So first one, 50,000 of the cells in your body will die and be replaced with new cells, all while you've been reading this sentence.
Place your answers in the chat now. Is it true? Is it false? Ooh, 4 true so far.
We seem to have consensus, so everyone thinks it's true.
And we got 1 false. But the majority is correct. It is indeed true. Well done. Sorry, Junior.
Okay, second one. One human brain generates more electrical impulses in a single day than all the world's telephones put together. True or false? Yeah, we've got more trues again.
Loving how quickly everyone's responding as well.
Yeah, and we're okay with you just putting the T as well. We can figure out what that is. So that's
T or F can work, yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's correct as well. Okay, so we do actually generate more electrical impulses in a single day than the entire world's phones put together. Okay, next one. Your brain is 30% water.
Oh,
true or false? Okay, again, we've got consensus again, and the majority are saying it's false. And Roxanne, do you want to reveal the correct answer?
You are indeed correct. The answer is indeed false. It's not 30%, but 80% water in our brains.
So it's a lot of water in there.
The next one is your brain feels no pain. There are no nerves that register pain within the brain itself. Is this true or false?
Okay, interesting. So we've got a little bit of debate on this one. Some of you think it's true and some of you think it is false. And this actually is in fact
true.
True. Your brain does not feel any pain because it doesn't have any sensory nerves. So there are no nerves in the brain that can actually sense or register the pain. It's the rest of the body that detects it and feels it. Your brain just sort of like understands it and interprets it and tells you how to respond to it. Brilliant. Okay, next one.
It is not possible to tickle yourself. Ooh, is this true or false?
Has anyone ever tried this?
It's a safe space. Someone said I have, okay.
Excellent. And what was the verdict? Were you able to tickle yourself?
You could tickle yourself on your feet. That's true. Your feet, okay.
Okay, so the correct answer for this one is true. It's actually not possible to tickle yourself. And the reason for that is there's a little part of your brain right at the back called the cerebellum, which detects that what's happening, and it basically just warns the rest of the brain what's about to happen, so you don't end up reacting to it. So maybe if you think you're tickling yourself on your feet, it's because it's an expected reaction rather than an actual reaction.
That's very much true. Okay, and the last one is humans only use 10% of their brains.
Okay, so this one always has this sort of response where some people think it's true and some people think it's false. Generally, if you pay attention to pop culture and movies like Lucy and those kind of things where they tap into the majority of their brain, they are able to have like sort of superhuman powers kind of thing. This is actually false. In fact, the opposite is true. You are usually using the majority of your brain most of the time because different parts of the brain have different functions. So most of the time you're using some part of the brain when you're doing something. So this one's actually false. So those of you who are hoping to tap into some superhuman powers, unfortunately, that's not going to happen.
Okay, and that is the Mythbusters done. So
you guys did really well on this,
well
by
done.
the way.
Honestly,
absolutely well done.
Congrats.
Yeah. Okay. So we just want to give you a little bit of an overview about psychology at Newvic. We've been teaching A-level psychology and we've just introduced applied psychology recently. So we're going to give you a little bit of overview on both of them. If at any point while we're going through this, you have any questions, feel free to add them in the chat. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a Q&A at the end of the session, and we'll go through all the questions and answer any additional questions at that point as well. Okay, so the A-level psychology entry requirements are that you need to have a 6 in English language, a 6 in one or more of the sciences. We do tend to prefer biology just because there is biological aspects to psychology, but a 6 in any of the sciences will allow you to be able to cope with the research methods parts of psychology, and 5 in maths as well because there is a bit of maths requirement. You'll be expected to attend 4 sessions per week. Each session is 70 minutes, or an hour and 10-minute lessons. And the course is assessed 100% exam. So there is no course for the A-level, it's all exams. And because they're linear exams, you have your final exams at the end of your second year. And that's 3 2-hour papers that covers everything that you do across the 2 years. And the exam board that we are with are AQA. Okay.
And so, as well as A-level psychology, we offer applied psychology, which is a BTEC, a level 3 certificate, extended qualification. And what is required for you for applied, what we need to do is that ensuring that you have a 5 in your English language, a 5 in one or more sciences, similar to A-level. It has to be not necessarily biology, but closer, just because there's aspects of applied psychology closely linked to biology, and a 4 in maths. The maths requirement is still a bit of maths in applied, but just not as heavy as in A-level. As well, for the applied psychology, we'll have 1 hour, 10-minute lessons. You're expected to attend lessons 4 hours a week, whereby the assessment is a bit different. It's 50% exam and then 50% coursework. Unit 1, which is a lot more approaches and knowledge-based, will be the exam, whereby coursework, you'll be asked to carry out your own research and applying your knowledge that you've learned from psychology into your report. The exam board that we have for applied psychology is Pearson. So when you are carrying out your exams, you'll be expected to go to a Pearson Centre to do this in.
Brilliant. Okay. And like we said, if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat and we will revisit it at the Q&A bit. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of introduction activities just to get you, give you an idea about some of the things we'll cover in psychology. So if you grab a pen and paper, if you don't already have it with you, so that we can have a go at these 3 tasks. We're going to start off with a few quick yes or no questions just to find out whether psychology would be a good fit for you. We're going to have a look at a quick maths question so you can get an idea about some of the maths criteria in psychology. But this is why we asked for the 5 in maths at GCSE, because if you're able to do that, then you'll be able to cope with the maths at A level. And then we've got another question for you to think about, but we'll come back to that because that's a bit more psychological based. So give you a bit of time to grab some pen and paper, and then we will start.
Raise your hands when you're ready so we know when to move on. Okay, let's make a start.
Okay, so we're going to start off with a how suited am I to studying A-level psychology at Newvic quiz. The quiz is based around the A-level because majority of students tend to apply for the A-level. But if you meet the criteria for this, then you will also meet the criteria for the applied. Okay, so let's start off with the first question. So as the question comes up, all you need to do is write down yes or no, and then make sure you make a note of the number of points that your answer corresponds to as well. So for example, the first question, I am interested in the way people think and how they behave. If your answer to this is yes, give yourself 20 points. If it's no, give yourself 0 points. So we've added a little bit of maths for you within this as well.
The next one is, I would enjoy watching psychological documentaries on brain and behavior. Remember to score yourself a point.
Okay, question 3. I'm prepared to spend 4 to 5 hours private study outside class per week for psychology and will always aim to complete my homework on time. So if your answer to this is yes, give yourself 30 points. If it's no, 0 points.
I am aware that 10% of the exam will require maths and have at least a grade 5 maths at GCSE level. So if you agree with this question, give it a yes, 20 points. If not, score yourself 0.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next set of questions, which continue with this. So question 5. I can remember lots of detailed information and revise thoroughly for tests and examinations. So if you answer yes to this, give yourself 30 points, and no is 0 points.
Number 6, I can write detailed and organized essays and I have at least a 6 in GCSE language, English language. So if you score a yes, give yourself 20 points. If not, give yourself a 0. 2 more questions left.
Okay, question 7. I aim to have 100% attendance and punctuality. So 20 points if that's a yes, 0 points if that's a no. And the last one.
I enjoy learning about science and biology, and I have at least 1 6 in a science GCSE.
And if you don't know yet, then go with your predicted grades.
So if you score a yes, please give yourself 20 points. If not, give yourself 0 points.
Okay, so now what you need to do is just add up all your points and let's see how you did and whether you are suited to studying psychology at NUVIC. So if you scored 0 to 80 points, you are in the anxiety attack category. So perhaps psychology may not be for you. Perhaps read around a bit more about what it involves and consider your options.
If you are in Mind Magic, you scored between 90 and 130 points. And this is a good place to be in because it means that it looks like psychology could be a useful subject for you to consider here at NUVIC.
And anyone who scored 140 to 170 points, well done. You guys are budding psychologists. It looks like psychology is just the subject for you. And we hope to see you in September. Okay, so were there any questions there that threw anyone or anything that anyone was surprised with? Again, if there is anything there, just pop it in the chat and we can answer those questions. But I'm just going to quickly go back to through the questions just so you guys are aware of the requirements of psychology. So we do look at the way people think and behave. We look at different approaches in psychology and we apply them to certain behaviors like memory and attachment and their biology and how that can affect the way people think and behave. We also look at how people's brain and mind and biology and psychology can affect like eating behavior and attachments and a couple of mental disorders as well. Not as much as everyone thinks. So just another little myth buster here. A lot of students think that when they come on to study psychology, they're going to be looking all at mental disorders. We touch upon it briefly, but it's a very small part of psychology. Okay.
I think it's important to highlight that we have a research methods module within A-level psychology, and that does mean you are expected to have 10% maths requirement for this subject. And the interesting part about research methods is that it can appear in any paper, and also it can appear amongst any topic. So even though we learn about attachments, memory, social influence, psychopathology, biopsychology, you can have research methods questions embedded within that. So you need to be prepared to apply your maths knowledge at any time within psychology.
Okay, so if you enjoy watching documentaries on the brain and behavior, it's a good option. We actually start off with biopsychology, which really looks about biological aspects in the brain and how it affects our behavior.
One thing we do as well in NUVIC is provide ALLs, which is out of lesson learning. So that could be considered part of your outside learning outside of the classroom. So we would expect you to complete your ALLs. So it's like almost like flip learning, doing a bit of work before you come into the lesson, so that you can be ahead, not ahead, but have a foundation understanding of what we're going to learn in today's lesson.
Okay, so we do so remembering lots of detailed information is quite important for psychology because there is a lot of content involved. There's lots of theories and studies, and you need to be able to remember like the percentages and the key concepts within all those theories. And they could be potential essay questions where you also need to be able to evaluate them. So being able to remember lots of detailed information is a useful skill to have if you are thinking about studying psychology. And that will then also help you to revise thoroughly for tests and exams as well. But obviously that's a general student habit that we expect anyway. So all students should be revising thoroughly for test and examination, especially with everything that's happening in the last couple of years. All assessments throughout the year are more important than ever now.
Most definitely. And I think it's really important to emphasize here that you do need at least a 6 in GCSE English language, because we have up to 16 markers in A-level psychology. So you need to be quite fluent in your writing, having variations in sentence starters, knowing the different comparative language when you're evaluating, when you're applying knowledge, when you're applying your understanding. So having the differentiating your sentences will play a key role into achieving full marks for a 16 marker.
I mean, we do provide you with support, obviously, and ways to organize essays, but it will really help you if you are able to get those higher grades if you have a starting point. 100% punctuality and attendance is extremely important, especially for a subject like psychology, because it's like I mentioned before, there's a lot of content to cover. So if you miss lessons, it's it's the responsibilities on the students to catch up, and it can be quite difficult if you don't attend all of them. So it's really important to stay on top of all your notes. We do use Google Classroom, so you will have access to any homework and things that you need to complete. We also have a booklet model, so if there are any lessons that you missed, you can always ask which areas of the booklet we covered and complete that independently.
But last but not least, it's important to know that psychology is not just about the person and society, but including parts of science, specifically biology. As Mabuba mentioned, we start off with biopsychology, a lot about the brain, about neurochemistry, evolution. So if you don't have any interest in that now, I'll suggest start to reevaluate if psychology is for you, because it's a subject that is very diverse and looks at all aspects. It looks at society, looks at the individual, and it looks at it from a scientific basis, as well as applying our mathematical knowledge. So really make sure that your GCSE grade is correlating so that you can enjoy psychology at its fullest.
And I think it's also important to remember that while there's 10% maths involved, but at least 25% will also be research methods, which is based on like scientific research processes. And the biology, the science bit is an area that a lot of students struggle with. But at A level, psychology is technically considered a science. Not when you get to university for some reason, but at A level, it's technically considered a science. So that's why the science requirement is really important. Okay, so well done if we've got any budding psychologists up there and any mind magics, and we'll hopefully encourage you to enroll on the subject with the remaining activities. Okay, so one of the things that we mentioned was 10% maths, and you might be thinking, hang on a minute, psychology, why are we talking about maths?
What's going on here?
But because of the scientific criteria, and because, as I said, it's technically a science, all science subjects have a little bit of maths in them as well. Okay, so there's a little example for you. If you're able to handle this, you'll be able to handle the maths requirement. That's why we asked for the 5 in GCSE maths. I'm going to give you a few minutes to have a go at working out the answer to this. And once you've got it, feel free to type your responses into the chat. And also, because if you've done maths before, you'll know that you should always include your working out. If you can also include your working out, that would be great. So I'm just going to mute myself so that you guys can take a bit of time to think about the answer, work it out, and then just pop it into the chat.
Because we've lost a
Okay,
third.
so we've just been having a look at some of your comments. Majority of you think it's 40%, but haven't shown, not all of you have shown your working. Amara's shown her working, and she got 40% that way.
Hells yeah.
Hells also showed yes, help.
Yes, hell yeah.
I think it's, yeah, you might want to think how you come on to
It's Delphine. Okay.
Oh,
Hi,
it's Delphine.
Delphine.
Thank
You for giving me your name.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Delphine. And Night Hunter Frost.
You are
You've
correct.
lost a third of your participants. So the correct answer is actually 33% or 33.33%. So the percentage decrease was you work out with the fact that there's 120 participants to start off with, but you're left with 80. So the difference is 40. And then you have to work out what that difference is as a percentage of your total participants, which is 120. So 40 divided by 120. And then you, to make it a percentage, you obviously multiply it by 100 and you get a third. Okay, so well done to the
Delphine.
couple of you who managed to get 33%. Everyone else, just have a go at brushing up on your maths. If you want to have a look at the maths requirement for this course, and if you need to top up your skills, we're going to provide you with a link to the specification at the end of the slide, so you can have a look through what the maths requirements are. But percentages is a big part of it, things like fractions and ratios, and we do statistical tests in second year, but you will get support for those things. But in terms of like first year, these are the kind of things that we expect you to already know. Okay, so brilliant, well done. Okay. Right, so the last activity is to do with a topic in psychology, which we're not going to tell you about just yet because we want to see what you come up with first.
So what happens next? A cat who has recently given birth to kittens was busy feeding and caring for them. Then some recently hatched ducklings found their way to the cat. ...
What do you guys think happened? Just pop in the chat for us what you think. Wow, so we've got quite a range of responses. We've got a few that says the cat. I think that says I think that's meant to say attacked the duckling.
Attacked, yeah.
And the cat ate them. And actually, both of you are kind of on the right lines in the sense that cats and ducklings, that's what would normally happen.
They would.
You know, if cats came across ducks or fish and those kind of things, the likely thing is that they would attack them and they would probably eat them. Okay, but then a few of you others are saying some other interesting things. Some of you are saying nothing is happening. The cat's just going to ignore it and continue.
The cat will try to protect the ducklings. Interesting.
Yeah, Layla and Janitor, you guys have come up with some really interesting ideas. So I don't know if you guys have already done a bit of psychology at GCSE, but you're absolutely right. The ducklings could actually see the cat as a mother figure, and the cat in turn can also try to protect the ducklings. Okay, so if you said the cat at the ducklings, you'd actually be wrong, because due to the mothering hormones that the cat was releasing at the time that she'd just recently given birth, she actually looked after the ducklings and fed them herself. And you might think that's a bit strange. How does a cat feed a duckling? Well, we're going to show you. So we're going to show you a little clip of this actually happening in reality.
Let us know if it's clear or if there's any lagging. If not, then we'll just provide the link afterwards, okay?
Yeah, if it lags, there's not unfortunately much we can do about it at the minute.
Just outside the town of Laura, County Offaly, lives a young couple with the most remarkable story to tell. Ronan and Emma Lally own a small farm that they run alongside their day jobs. They have a lovely collection of animals, but wanted some ducks to complete the picture. So they got in some fertilized eggs. On the day they hatched, Ronan went to check on them, but couldn't find the ducklings in the barn.
Within seconds of that, a cat jumped down from a pigeonhole within the shed over there, and I kind of put one and one together, and I just presumed that the cat had swallowed up the ducklings.
At this stage, they were missing for about 6 hours, so Ronan thought there was no hope at all.
After searching round the farm, they eventually found the ducklings, But unfortunately, the cat, Della, had got there first.
I ended up catching the cat with a duck in her mouth at this stage, and it really looked, Ronan was like, she's going to kill the duck.
I was thinking, oh no,
Yeah.
we're only after getting them back and now she's going to eat them right in front of us.
Then Emma noticed something unusual.
I was like, Ronan, she's not actually forcefully holding this duck.
That's when the amazing thing happened. We put the cat down, put the ducklings down, and then all of a sudden the 3 little ducklings waddled straight underneath the cat. The cat lay down on her side, put her paw over one of the ducklings and was kind of nursing the duckling in towards us. So we were, I mean, just absolutely blown away with this. Because normally cats would eat little small birds, but it was awesome. It was just incredible to see it.
She was very content at this stage. She was purring and she was really loving towards the ducklings. When I was petting her down, I noticed that she actually had given birth to 3 kittens only within an hour or so beforehand.
It was a very lucky coincidence for the ducklings that the cat found them just after giving birth herself. For a narrow window of a couple of hours, mothering hormones will have been coursing through her body, causing her to love and nurture any small, warm, furry creature she found next to her.
I have no doubt whatsoever that the cat was thinking dinner if she had seen them either maybe a couple of hours before or a couple of hours after. I've no doubt that she would have put the napkin around her neck, knife and fork, salt and pepper, the whole lot.
But it was when they came to move the unusual family into a safer spot that they got an even greater surprise.
As soon as we lifted up the cat, that's when we were totally amazed because the ducklings were actually latched on to the cat's nipple, so
They were hanging from her. Yeah, it was very, very bizarre.
when we seen them breastfeeding, we just thought, oh my God,
Yeah.
there's something very, very strange happening here, and something very strange, and also something very unique, you know.
Duck mums don't produce milk, and ducklings are born ready to find their own food and water from their surroundings. So to see them suckling a cat is extraordinary. Experts can only guess that their natural foraging instinct caused them to come upon the milk as an unexpected food source. And their desire for warmth and comfort kept them close to their foster mother. Ronan was keen to separate the ducks, fearful the cat's predatory instincts might kick back in. But Emma, being a midwife, recognized something that she regularly sees at work.
There was just so much love there, you know, and like I see it every day in the labour ward. They just want to hold them babies so tight and close. It's a moment that just lasts forever, and I could see that happening with the cat and the ducks. It just took me a while to convince Ronan. Because his Ronan, they're just so in love. They love each other. Like, you can't break this bond. It's amazing.
Before long, the ducklings started to outgrow the kittens and gain their independence. Something the cat wasn't so happy with.
These ducks, her yellow kittens, were a lot more active, and she found it hard to control them. She was trying.
Several weeks later, the kittens are still small, and the ducks, although independent, still have an attachment to their surrogate mum. So it would seem that this rare coincidence of a cat giving birth just as the ducklings were making their first steps into the world resulted in this remarkable situation. Filled with an instinct to mother small furry creatures, the cat ignored any natural urge to eat the ducklings and took them on as her own. Now, it could be argued that all of this only happened because it was a domestic...
Okay, so there's some really interesting questions while the video is playing. So we're just going to go back and try and answer those. Let me just scroll up. There we are. Yeah, well done, Delphine. That's a really good application of this animal attachment to human attachment. And we do actually look at human attachment within psychology. So animal attachment is actually just one subtopic within the whole attachment topic, and the rest of it is all about human attachment. We don't actually touch upon feral children as much. So people like Oksana and Jeannie, you might have come across them in sociology. We talk about institutionalization and the effects of not being able to form an attachment. So that is a really interesting link there. Yes, you're right. She does. The cat does think that they're all her children. So I don't know if she thinks she physically gave birth to the ducks, but she sees them all as her infants. Not quite sure what happened to the duck parents, unfortunately, but different species work differently. So ducks are actually precocial species, which means that they don't need to be taken care of as much. So as soon as they're born, they know how to sort of waddle and fly, move around and hunt for food and stuff like that. So they don't really need the parent to take care of them. The only thing they need is someone to sort of protect them from any other predators. And that's why they usually imprint onto the first moving object that they see. In this case, unfortunately, what happened was that they imprinted onto the cat. So they then saw the cat as the mother. That's a really interesting question from Q. The cat, I think she realized that they look different from her actual children, her actual kittens. But you could see even as they got older, they were still hanging around. Even as the ducklings got bigger than the kittens, the cat was still taking care of them and looking after them. With the Oksana example, they saw it almost as another version of their species. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well done. Okay, some really interesting points there. So the last thing we wanted to show you before we open up to questions is how to prepare for the course. So there's a couple of links here that you can have a go at looking at. What I'll do is I'll just post them into the chat so you guys can copy and paste it. I think what might happen is the college might send these slides, so that might be a good thing. If not, I'm just popping them all into the
and I would really encourage you to look at the links, because if you are interested in psychology, it really does break down which area of psychology you're interested in, whether it's forensic, whether it's clinical, educational. As you know, we are psychology teachers, so that will come under a different head, that'll be under educational. But overall, psychology is a massive subject and it goes into different directions. Forensic just criminal, it's to do with criminal, right? Forensic, so to do with the blood samples and CSI.
It's not to do with the CSI aspect. No. So let me just let me just go back to the slide. So the links that we've got here, the first link is takes you to the AQA website, because remember the exam board that we're doing is AQA, and it shows you what all the topics are that we're going to cover within the syllabus. So that will be a good way for you to see what you will be covering in the course and whether you're interested in the topics and whether you're interested in continuing to take this course. The second link, which is the Digest BPS one. So the BPS is actually the British Psychological Society. It's the governing body for chartered psychologists. So anyone who wants to work as a professional psychologist registers with the BPS. So they actually do this weekly newsletter called the Research Digest, which has a whole bunch of little articles about the latest research and some really interesting topics. So it would be a good thing to go on that link and sign up to it if you're interested, so you can see what the latest research is and whether it's of interest to you. The last link is again on the BPS website, but it covers careers. So if you actually go on the website, what will happen is that you can click on these different areas within psychology, and you can find out a bit more about them. Okay, so for example, clinical psychology looks at people with mental health disorders and how to diagnose them and treat them. Educational psychology looks at people with learning difficulties and anyone who's having difficulties in their life that can then affect their education. So they might work with school children to create education plans. Counseling, which you're probably familiar with, involves therapy. Forensic is to do with working with, it's not CSI because that's the more science element. So forensic psychologists work with understanding why criminals behave the way they do, and they can also help in terms of like rehabilitation, working with offenders in prison, helping them to change bad habits and things like that. Neuropsychology is quite an interesting one. It's at the forefront of psychology at the moment. It's about looking at the brain and lots of brain scanning techniques and how different areas of the brain are responding to different things that you do, or which areas of the brain are actually active when you're doing certain tasks. So one of the studies that we look at in memory, for example, shows that 2 different parts of your prefrontal cortex are active when you're looking at different types of memories. So if you're looking at memories for facts and knowledge, your posterior prefrontal cortex is activated, whereas if you're looking at memories of events and experiences, then your anterior prefrontal cortex is activated. So that's quite an interesting area and a bit more research for you guys to carry out in preparation for the course. Okay, so the last section is the Q&A. I think there are a few questions earlier, so what I'm going to do is try and scroll up to the beginning. While I do that, if there's anyone who has a question that they want to say, then Roxanne, you can have a go at answering. So if you want to unmute and just
read
while I have a look through the questions on the chat. Okay, I think the first question starts there. We don't do hour-long documentaries. We do give, like, for example, the clip that we just showed you, we show you documentaries linked to aspects or content topics. And within the lesson, sometimes we might give you links to further links to resources for you to watch independently as well. Can I do this course if I've combined higher for science?
Yes, you could, of course.
Yes, as long as you've got the 7 and the 8 in science and you feel like your biology is at least at a 6, then yes, that would be absolutely fine. Let me just scroll down. Those questions was for the attachment ones. Oh, we've answered the forensic one.
What's the difference between sociology and psychology? So with sociology, it looks at the study of society and the environment, whereby psychology focuses on the individual and how the mind works.
So with psychology, like you said, it is all about the individual. It does look about how the environment can affect the individual, but it's the immediate environment. Whereas sociology, like you said, the bit at the beginning is society. So sociology is the study of society, whereas psychology is the study of the mind. And it's about the wider impact of the community and society on people. There's a little bit of overlap in the social approach or the social influences topic that we do. So you may notice how that focuses on about groups and how they affect people. But the rest of psychology is focused generally on the individual.
There's some overlap with research methods as well, definitely. But psychology, I believe in sociology, it's just analysing graphs, whereby in some psychology papers you may be asked to actually carry out a particular method.
Yeah. So there might be a little bit overlap in terms of like the different methods that you use. So if you've done GCSE sociology, that bit might be familiar. Could I be a therapist by only doing A-level psychology? Not just by doing A-level psychology. So it depends on what type of therapist you mean. So if a lot of people mix up therapists with psychiatrists. Now, if you want to become a psychiatrist, you actually have to do a medical degree first, and then you specialize in psychology, and then you are able to become a psychiatrist. And that's because you are actually prescribing people with medication, and you don't want any random person prescribing you with things that might not be good for you. To be a therapist, you would need to do a degree in psychology, but then you would also need to do a doctorate in counseling psychology. It takes time. Just like, for example, if you want to be a doctor, you have to do years of training and practice and knowledge and courses. And it makes sense because if you go to a doctor, you want them to be knowledgeable and you want them to give you the right treatment. So it's the same with a therapist. You don't want any random person who doesn't have experience telling you or providing you with support for your mental health, because they also need to be qualified and give you the right information. So you want someone who's an expert to be able to provide you. So it does take a time to get there, but anything worth doing does take that effort and that time.
Oh, the next one. In your opinion, what is the hardest thing to learn about psychology? If we're being specific, I think with the A-level psychology is to do more with not the topics itself, it's the application when you're writing. So having the actual application and evaluative skills. And the tips I would suggest is from the start, we give you a skills booklet. That should be your Bible in psychology. You should use that as a referral point, going back to it. We provide a lot of help regarding how to write your 16 markers. When we give it to you with the topic, go home and plan it. Get your evaluation points out of the way, get your AO1 points out of the way, which is your knowledge, and having practice along the way. And we start in September. We'll be giving you 16 markers from maybe after the half term in October. So just practice.
Yeah, so I would say also from what I've seen from past students, most of them say the hardest thing is the biopsychology, which is why we do start off with that topic to give you a bit of insight. So if you do struggle with it, you have you have a little bit of time to think about whether it's the right subject for you to continue with. But if you're able to cope with it, then it's a good thing. I think another thing that a lot of students have mentioned in the past is they're quite surprised with how much content there is to learn in psychology, because it is about humans, and it's we do look at it in depth. There's quite a lot of information and theories and studies. So as long as you're able to be organized and you've got good time management skills and you work hard and you revise and you stay on top of everything, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to cope with it. Good question. Are there any trips? Well, at the moment, unfortunately, because of obviously lockdown restrictions, we weren't able to do our yearly trip. So we do actually have a trip that we do every year to the London Zoo, which might sound a bit strange, but it's linked to the phobias topic that we cover within psychopathology. So if you want to know more about that, you will have to wait and see on the course.
Can I just take criminology to become a criminologist, or do I need psychology as well?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you don't actually need to study psychology or criminology at A-level to do them at university. I think that's a common misconception. I mean, it definitely helps because it gives you a good starting point and a base, and it gives you an understanding of what each of the subjects require. But yeah, you can actually go on to do criminology without studying psychology. It would be, again, it's a good, it complements it because you do look at different areas of psychology. In applied psychology, in the second year, we also look at health behavior, and we also look at forensic and criminal psychology. So there is aspects of that could help as well. I'm not good at science, but I've always had an interest in the brain and would love to have a career centering psychology. Would you say I should still take this course? So it depends on the how good you are at the science. I think if you want to do the A-level, the 6 in science is actually quite vital because there is a lot of biological psychology. There's a whole topic on biological psychology. Even in approaches, we do biological approach. The research methods is also science. In the second year, we also look at biological explanations of behavior. So there is that science throughout the entire course. And students who tend to take other humanities subjects have said that they that they struggle with it more than students who take other sciences. The applied psychology might be a good option for you because there's not as much science in the first year. There's a lot of research methods in Unit 2, which is the coursework unit. But you will get support with that. In the second year, however, there is a whole topic called health psychology, which does look at stress and addiction, which, like you said, you've got an interest in that area. But the science, I would say have a look at the specification. Have a look through the spec and see if you're able to. But remember what I said, you don't have to have psychology at A-level to do it at uni. So if you pick non-science subjects and you do well and get into university, or the university of your choice, you can do psychology and go on to have a career in that as well.
Ooh, could I be a psychology teacher with a psychology A-level, or do I need a degree with the course? I don't have a psychology degree. I am teaching psychology, but I would suggest the best option would be having a degree in psychology, just so that it will become background knowledge for you. Having that foundational learning, knowing that is at degree level, when you are depending on where you're teaching GCSE or A level, it would be easier in terms of teaching the content. And I would suggest, if you're not doing a degree in psychology, eventually you would have to do a conversion course, or ensuring that your degree is around social sciences, so that picking up the further knowledge will not be as hard when you're transitioning.
I would say it's definitely an advantage, because I do have a psychology degree. Usually you would have the degree, and then you would have to do teacher training. So if your degree background is in psychology or social sciences, it's psychology will be the best, because it gives you that background knowledge, as you said, and it means that you're much more confident in your knowledge of the content as well. But you do a teaching qualification in addition to that, and that's the bit that's important. With remembering details, is there a lot of psychologists we need to memorize, or are their theories and work enough? Yes, there aren't names of psychologists, but it's more about their theories and the details about the studies. That's more important. There are some like big psychologist names that you would be expected to know, like you've probably heard of, like Freud and Zimbardo and Milgram and some of those names, but it's more about their work.
I have a lot of doctor's appointments. Well, I miss, and I will miss quite a lot of lesson. Would it be able to catch up?
I think, again, you need to think about what the right option is for you there, and whether you're suited to a content-heavy A-level course. Vocational courses are a little bit easier. Well, not easier, sorry, but they might be a bit more manageable if you've got those kind of things. But like I said, because the content is quite heavy and there's a lot of like, it's a new subject for people, so students struggle with it generally because they don't have any background information. Like, for example, a lot of the subjects you do in school, like history and geography and sociology and those kind of GCSEs that are offered, people are familiar with them, but psychology generally tends to be quite new. So it is quite difficult to catch up. So that's why we do recommend 100% attendance and punctuality.
Are we allowed to visit the different classes before we start in September?
I'm not sure about that. I think there's a virtual tour happening on social media at the moment. I think with all the restrictions, I don't think that's going to be possible. But usually you start college on the 2nd of September, and but there will be time for you before that during the week, where you come in to meet your tutor and you get a tour of the college as well. I'd Google online to see what different unis say about what. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Is there a difference between a therapist and a psychotherapist? If there is, what is the difference? So psychotherapist is just a very specific type of therapy, and most people overlap counselor and therapy, but counselling is actually a specific type of therapy as well. I think therapist is like the overall term, and then you've got people who specialise in different types of therapies.
Any more questions?
I think we've actually gone a little bit over, but that's fine, because we've had some really good questions. But we're going to end the session here. Just before we end it, though, just a little reminder that enrollment is on the 12th of August. And if you've already applied to the college, you will be receiving a link by email to enroll the day before your GCSE results date. If you haven't applied, the link to apply is on the screen. And once you've received your final GCSE results, just click on the link, upload your results, and wait for a call from the college to complete the process.
So we hope to see you in September, or enrollment day, and keep yourself safe over the summer, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.